John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com, NFL and Eagles insider. He joins us now as somehow Howie Roseman was able to pull one off, John, but it seems like a great move on the surface. Is it as good of a move as it seems like on the surface?
It's a pretty good move. That's a pretty good player. You have some age concerns. Some people are concerned with the off-the-field stuff a little bit, but this is a very, very strong locker room. I don't think the Eagles are concerned with that. And when you project that front four, especially late in a series of downs, when you have that nickel rush on the field, it projects to be Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, Michael Bennett, Fletcher Cox. I mean, good luck with that. I don't know. I don't know how you stop that if you're an opposing offense.
You mentioned his age. He's 32. He'll be 33 as this season starts here. But has he shown signs of slowing down?
Not really. He was pretty darn good last year. I mean, he wasn't at his best, where he was arguably one of the two or three most disruptive defensive linemen in the league. But he's still darn good, and he's almost a carbon copy of Brandon Graham. He's that exact type of player, except he's been even more productive in the fact that he plays defensive end, but he's often moved inside to the interior in obvious pass rushing situations. They're almost a carbon copy as far as versatility and the type of players they are. But we all know in this league, people do get older. When it does leave you, it tends to leave you quickly. So, I look at his contract, the fact that he's still got 3 years left on it. This might be essentially a one-year deal for the Eagles because he's very cap-friendly this year, and then it starts going up for the final 2 years of his contract. So, they'll see what he does this year and sort of revisit it. But at least for the short term, man, this is a really good player to add to a really good team.
Do you think Howie Roseman met with the Eagles at all, or the players, or the leadership group on this team, and said, "Guys, I have a shot to get Michael Bennett. Thumbs up, thumb down. Give me some feedback on this."
I doubt it. I really do. I think he already understands the leadership, as I said, in that locker room. He already understands what people like Malcolm Jenkins bring, and Chris Long and Jason Peters if he's back. And I think that's part of the strength of this organization. They think they can bring in players that maybe scare other teams. And they will fit in here, and we'll see how it develops. But Michael got into a pretty high-profile situation with the police. Some people say made up the story. We all know how those kinds of things have sort of enveloped our society with people on each side of the fence. All I can tell you is this is a three-time Pro Bowl player who, won a Super Bowl in Seattle. So the assumption that he didn't fit in Seattle or they couldn't control him is kind of ridiculous. It's kind of revisionist history. He was pretty darn successful there. And I don't see it changing here from a football standpoint. All that other stuff to me is just white noise.
John, when I look at this move, I see a couple of things. One, I see that the Eagles are still trying to get as many Super Bowls or many opportunities in this window on Carson Wentz's rookie deal as they can by adding this player of this type of talent. And two, giving away Marcus Johnson and with the impending decisions coming with Torrey Smith, there's still a chance they can add another receiver in the draft or free agency.
Oh, sure. They're going to need to add a receiver somewhere, as you mentioned, whether it's draft or free agency. I didn't think Torrey was coming back anyway. They just that $5 million option is more valuable to them in the salary cap than Torrey is on the field. And I never thought Marcus was the kind of guy. He's a great guy. He's tremendous in the locker room, can help you a little bit on special teams. It's a great blocker. But I never got the feeling they thought he was going to be a potential future starter. So I thought even if they didn't get rid of Marcus in this trade, they were going to bring in a receiver, and they need to improve past what they have with Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar. And they know that, and they still understand that.
By the way, tweeting, Michael Bennett has tweeted himself with an Eagles jersey on. He's wearing Trey Thomas's number 72 there, but he has already tweeted himself with an Eagles jersey with a bunch of emojis, fire, trophies, gold medals. So I guess you can say that's official. If he's got
free Meek Mill.
Free Meek Mill made the tweet as well. Yes. So he's officially a Philadelphian.
Yeah, and if you want to take a look at it, I put the tweet in my story at 973ESPN.com. He's obviously very excited there. He put the Eagles jersey. Obviously, he wore 72 in Seattle, so we'll see what he is here. But ultimately, hey, this is a really good player, and he is aging, and I'm not sure if he's going to see the end of his contract here. But,
well, 1.5 this year and what, 6 next year, 7 a year, something like that. I mean, so this looks like a rental, no?
Yeah, 1.65 this year counts 6.65 against the cap, and if you look at the guy he's going to replace, which is essentially Vinny Curry, who was going to make $9 million. Of course, he was never going to see that contract. We all understand that, but he was at least scheduled to count $11 million against the cap. That's why Howie's the reigning executive of the year. I mean, he got a better player somehow for less money, even though he's got no room. Everybody constantly talks about it, but he still figures out a way. Now, there's a lot of things that have to happen. Remember, the new league year doesn't start until next Wednesday. So none of these trades, there's another trade today, Alex Ogletree going from the Rams to the Giants. None of these trades can be official until next Wednesday. And next Wednesday, you got to be under the cap. So the Eagles still have a lot of stuff to do because they're $10 million, just about $10 million over the cap right now. So there's work to do, whether it's releasing, as I said, Torrey Smith, whatever they do with Vinny Curry, whether they can trade him or ultimately releasing him. You have the Donnie Jones retirement, maybe rework deal with Brent Selleck. A lot of dominoes still to fall before next Wednesday.
By the way, next Wednesday, I won't be under the cap. I'll be under the tiki bar.
I like that one. John, going back to the wide receivers, Todd McShay put out another mock draft today, and he had the Eagles taking an interesting one at 32 in DJ Chark. Now, I don't know if you got a chance to really watch a lot of DJ Chark at the Combine, but he did have an impressive 40 time, and watching him at LSU, he's got a good body at 6'3". If that came to fruition, do you think that was a good spot for the Eagles?
I do. I mean, I look at it as 30 seconds, and let's face it, I mean, you kind of wait and see what happens, and you take the best player available. Now, while that's a cliche, what it means is the best player available at positions you kind of need. And wide receiver, as we just mentioned, would be one of them. Tight end, specifically blocking tight end, if somebody could play in line, would be one of them. I just put up my mock draft today. I had a linebacker. I would have said defensive tackle before they moved and got Michael Bennett, who can play defensive end and defensive tackle. So you kind of look at the positions where they need a little bit of help, and wide receiver would be one of them. So, yeah, I think a wide receiver that they like would be in the conversation at 32. I still think the most likely scenario, unless there's more trades, is that the Eagles trade out of that position to try to get a second or a third-round pick.
Right, because they traded a fifth here, so they had 6 picks at the beginning of the day. They still have 6. They had 2 fifths. Now they have 1 fifth. They had no 7th before. They now have a 7th in this trade. John, is Curry the obvious odd man out here?
Yeah, I mean, I think and Bo Allen as well, but we never thought Bo was going to come back anyway because he's a free agent. I think he's going to get paid like a starter. And as I said, even though he's the Eagles' best run stuffer, really, natural run stuffer, Bennett's not that type of player, but he does have the ability to play inside. So you have a lot of versatility with Graham and Bennett. You still have Tim Jernigan, who the Eagles extended. And we'll see. I think they're going to bring Chris Long back. So it's still a very, very deep unit. And on paper, still the best defensive line in the NFL.
John McMullen's with us. Yeah, as you tweeted out about the cap situation that the Eagles kind of make out in this situation with Vinny Curry, if it's a 1-for-1, Bennett's in and Curry's out, then the cap situation has actually helped in this spot for Philly. A lot of people asking about how that would affect their cap situation here. And, hey, look, this makes their defensive line very versatile because, as you mentioned, very much like Graham, you could have situations where Graham, Fletcher Cox, Bennett, and Barnett are all four on the field at the same time, or you could do a Bennett and Brandon Graham, Chris Long, Derek Barnett. Look, I mean, it really has added some extra versatility where Curry was pretty locked in as an end, and Bennett's a much better run stopper than Curry, my opinion.
Yeah, he's just a much better player, and that's acknowledging that Vinny is a good player, and he had a pretty good year. But this is a Pro Bowl level player. This is, as I said, at least on paper, he's very similar to Brandon Graham, and in the past, he's been even more effective than Brandon, who's been, in a second-team All-Pro and one of the best players on this defense for 3 years now. So this is a big-time guy. And the fact that he still played at a high level last season, 8.5 sacks, it's, like I said, Jim Schwartz is there. I don't know where he is right now. Hopefully he's not in the blizzard we're having, but wherever he is, he's smiling right now.
Yeah. We had some people that were concerned about, that he's kind of a me-first guy, that, if he's in a rotation, that's not going to fly, that he's a dirty player. Any of those concerns?
Well, he's going to have to fit in the rotation, and that's where I think the Eagles and the strength of their locker room comes into it. They believe that they can make people fit into their system, but he's the type of player. I mean, the rotation is going to be leaned heavily towards him. He's going to be one of the main four guys. It's not like he's going to be a sub-package guy, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. And Doug says it all in all, he's a very deferential guy to begin with, and he doesn't like accolades thrown at him. And when you ask him how he manages the locker room and how he manages all these different personalities, he always kind of shrug it off and says, if you're winning, that stuff takes care of itself. Nobody complains when you're winning. I've yet to see somebody complain. When the Seahawks were winning the Super Bowl, nobody was complaining about Michael Bennett, and maybe the opposition and maybe the dirty playing and things of that nature. But I don't think that has anything to do with the Eagles, and they're going to win a lot of football games. I don't see how this team on paper is not going to win a heck of a lot. So I think that kind of stuff is going to take care of itself. Now, if they were 8-8, yeah, maybe you would start to create some waves. I don't think you're going to have that kind of issue.
We're beginning to see the breakup of the Seahawks, John?
Yeah, no question. I mean, Richard Sherman kind of came out and said he doesn't expect to be back. So you are seeing what essentially was the best defense of this generation. They're going to start to rebuild that thing. And, there's that theory that it's better to start a year early than a year late. I think that's the way Pete Carroll is kind of looking at it. But when you think about how good that defense was, Michael Bennett was a big part of that, and he was their best defensive lineman and their best pass rusher. And often, as I said, their most versatile defensive lineman.
John McMullen with us here on the Sports Bash on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Follow him for all the NFL news and notes at JF McMullen. There's plenty of them. Good day for Michael Bennett, not a good day for Martellus Bennett. He was released by the Patriots today, saving them $6.2 million. And I bring that up because the Eagles are going to be I would assume, are going to be looking for a tight end this offseason, right?
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with Selleck. I think they've resigned themselves to realizing Trey Burton's not going to be back. And Brent said he wants to play next season. I can't imagine the Eagles will not try to restructure the deal. That's one I don't think they wanted to deal with because I don't think they want to cut him. He's the longest tenured athlete in this city. He's very well liked. Ultimately, if he agrees to a restructure, I think he'll be back. But the Eagles need a blocking tight end because Zach does not block well. Trey does not block well. Even if he did come back, Billy Brown, who they like a lot as a young player, used to be a receiver, doesn't block at all. So they need a real inline tight end, and that would be a position you'd also look at in the draft.
Giants acquired linebacker Alec Ogletree and a 7th-round pick from the Rams in exchange for a 4th and 6th-rounder. So the Giants, we knew that they might be in play for a guy like Bradham. They went out and got a guy today via trade to really upgrade that linebacking core. In fact, Todd Gurley tweeting not too happy about losing his linebacker on defense.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that one because the Rams had just given Ogletree a 4-year extension, I think, before last season. And he's one of those new age linebackers, very athletic, 3-down guy, plays very well in coverage. So it's a little bit strange from their standpoint. And I think it's a good pickup for the Giants. I really do. And I think people are starting to look at what Howie Roseman is doing. I think this is part of the copycat of this league, and that maybe, and I've been saying this for years, people in this league value draft picks a little bit too much. In other words, if you can get a proven player for a 4th and a 6th-round pick, like Alec Ogletree, or a proven player like Michael Bennett for a 5th-round pick, essentially, why aren't you doing it more often? Yeah, they're older in their careers, but the odds of hitting on 4th and 6th-rounders are not good.
Yeah.
And the odds of getting a player like Ogletree are not good. The odds of getting a player like Bennett are virtually nil. So I think finally people are starting to figure that out.
Yeah, no question. I mean, there's a lot of – look at the Darren Sproles trade. Something like that where you get Sproles, you give up what was it, a 5th-rounder?
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, what are the odds you're going to get an impactful player in the 5th round of this draft? It's not good.
It's the whole basis of why The Price is Right still on television, John. What's behind door number 3?
Yeah, you're right. And people too often want to pick that door, and they have maybe a little bit too much confidence in their ability to add and cultivate talent. But if I got a chance to add a proven player, hey, I like that. I think the Eagles have done a wonderful job at not only in the trade market but also in free agency. Well, we constantly talk about all the players they added on essentially prove-it deals, guys like Patrick Robinson and Chris Long, who got a 2-year deal, but Alshon Jeffrey. Those guys were really, really a big part of a Super Bowl winning team. And would you rather have them or some 6th-round pick who can't play at the end of your roster?
Yeah, like John, you just talked about it, about kind of draft picks and getting players. I talked about it a little bit earlier when I put out my tweet that, the Browns should take Barkley number 1, a quarterback number 4, and then look to trade some of those picks for players. You can't just keep drafting rookies and expect for rookies to come in and make an immediate impact to make you good. Sometimes a lot of these picks don't pan out.
No, they don't. They don't. In the Browns, and as I said, I just put up my mock draft, and you can read it at 973ESPN.com. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think the Browns are going to take the quarterback at number 1. I think they have to, partially because they're pigeonholed and the fact that even though it wasn't John Dorsey's fault, they passed on Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson in back-to-back years. And now you're going to do it again? And I explained to Mike, I think yesterday on the show, there's only one guy on the planet who can assure himself he'll get the quarterback he wants, and that's John Dorsey. And he can only do it by taking him at number one. He can't guarantee that guy's going to be there at number 4, but he can guarantee that more likely than not, because no matter what they say, the Giants are going to take the quarterback, that you're either going to get Barkley at 4 or Quentin Nelson. And if there's one prospect who's better than Barkley, it's Quentin Nelson.
John, I want to get into real fast. Jordan Matthews said he got a bad diagnosis with the Eagles. That this is kind of interesting. That I thought they were both things that were going to heal on their own, but once I got around Buffalo's doctors, they told me to get in touch with the right people, and then I got really good feedback. He had all sorts of issues in Philly, and it sounds like he's blaming them for his knee and ankle problems.
Yeah, a little surprised by that. I mean, if anything, remember, Jordan was sat down for essentially the entire offseason, and you don't have to give us injury updates during off-season work, so we were all wondering what was wrong, but he wasn't practicing. He wasn't out there. Some people thought he was trying to get an extension. He didn't want to risk injury. So the Eagles were very, very cautious with him. They certainly weren't pushing him. I think the realization, there was a little bitterness because I think he saw himself as a very, very productive receiver for this team. And Howie Roseman and Joe Douglas thought he wasn't. And I think they're right. They didn't think he was a wide receiver 1 or even a 2. And he was more of sort of a complimentary guy. And they had hopes for Nelson Aguilar. It turns out they were 100% right. His career took over in the slot. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for Jordan here. But I don't know. I mean, this team won the Super Bowl. They've been very good with injuries in the past, very cautious. Sometimes guys just miss something. There's potential of that. Doctors are human beings as well. But I wouldn't take it too seriously.
All right, John McMullen with more on the NFL. It is starting to heat up as trades are happening. NFL free agency on Wednesday. Free tampering. Wild Wild West begins on Sunday. And he appears via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Follow him on Twitter at JFMcMullen. John, stay safe.
Thanks, John.
Hey, thanks, guys. I got to go shovel snow.
You and everybody. I don't feel bad for you.
All right. Enjoy the tiki bar.